You're listening to the Art of Making Home podcast with Sandro Stefanucci, a home builder with over 37 years of experience in the industry. This series shows you the construction industry from the contractor's perspective, as well as what it's like to work with the many different types of industry experts, such as interior designers, architects, and subtrades. In addition, we'll be discussing challenges that we have encountered and what other industry professionals can learn from those stories. We'll be covering such topics that many people do not consider before building a home, like what can your property actually allow? Is your property located on a steep hill? Where is the location? What will the municipality enable you to construct? It might not be as cut and dry as you think, so let's get the conversation started.
Welcome, beautiful people. It's Sandro Stefanucci from Abstract Homes and Renovations. And today we're going to be talking about warning signs when it comes to hiring a contractor. I think that's important to me is because I see a lot of jobs that are being done, or, when I get calls and stuff like that to look at a job, they're not really doing their research before they call somebody. So I like to have, there's better clarity in how you get to the point where you know that you want to talk to a contractor. And if I can educate people in the hiring process, I think it works out better for everybody in the end. First thing you should look at is their online presence. You can really tell a lot by just their online presence. If there's zero online presence, I'd be kind of hesitant about hiring that person. Look at their website, see the content that they have on their website, what they've done. You Google a contractor in your area and you come across a ton of, contractors that are working in your area. So I guess you kind of got to narrow it down first. I guess it always depends on what it is that you want to do. So if you are going to say, want a bathroom renovations, you're not going to hire a guy that builds houses to do your bathroom. So obviously, right? So I think you need to kind of, maybe some people don't actually think about that, but there's contractors in the different levels of contractors that do those kinds of jobs. So what is it that you want to do? And then you have to start narrowing it down from there. So bathroom contractors in our area, and then see what you come up with. That can tell you a lot about what that contractor does. Right from there, you'd be able to tell online if it's something that you are doing that you want done. Like, is that contractor going to fit you just by looking at, his online presence? And other things you should be looking for is also ask your friends and family members for referrals. That's your next step. When looking and getting referrals from friends and family members, ask them specific questions about, well, what is it that you got that contractor to do? Did you get along with them well? Was it communication? I mean, communication, I think, is just like the number one criteria, I think, for hiring a contractor. Will you communicate well? I mean, there's some guys that communicate well, but if they don't communicate well with you, then it can be a real problem going down the road. There could be some problems down there. So again, asking questions like that. Did he communicate really well with you? Did he get back to you in time? Was there a clear understanding of even the products and stuff that you were using on there? Did he go through the pros and cons about different using products? I think that's important. And the cost is attached to it, because typically, there is usually a cost attached to something that's a better quality on there. So again, the communication is super important. Definitely do drive-by. So get a list of the stuff that they've done. Typically, any contractor would be more than happy to give you a list of, certain houses that they've done. Do a drive-by, phone the client, see what how their experience was. So, physically looking at what they're doing. So, and I would actually say, well, what is it you're doing right now? Give me the address of the job that you're working on right now. Can I do a drive-by and go look at it and see what it's like? Is it clean? Is it messy? Ask if you can go inside and look at it. If you say go after hours when the guys aren't there to do a tour afterwards and see how clean it is, right? I think cleanliness speaks of volumes of the contractor being conscientious about his sites, and is he organizing the lumber, materials, they're not scattered everywhere, crisscrossing over, and there's garbage and stuff that needs to be taken away. I mean, the sites are not always super clean, but at the end of the day, they should be clean, or at least organized, if they're a good contractor. Guys that don't care, they don't care about cleaning up. So that's always a good one for me, clean up, right? I find the better contractors are always quite clean on their job sites. And a good point to bring up is also, when you hire a contractor, who is going to be doing the job on my site? Who's going to be running it? Right. And there are site supers and project managers and so forth on that. But I think you should be able to make that call before, because you might be talking to somebody who you think is going to be on your site every day, and that might not necessarily be the case. For me, we try not to take on too many jobs, so we like to be on the site every single day. It might only be for half an hour, depending on what's going on with the other sites, but I'm there typically every day. And I think that's important. But it's important for me that I get a better handle of what's going on the job site, and issues can be headed off before they get too far along, sort of thing, right? And there's always things. Construction is never perfect, never will be. And there's always things that come up. So communicating with, for me, communicating with my customer is very important on those issues, because we might not be able to put something in that the customer would want to have in there because of this. And the communication, the process of, after post-COVID, we're dealing with a lot of delays in products, and they just can't get the drivers to ship stuff out, and they can't get, the ships unloaded. It becomes kind of a pain, but as long as your customer knows that ahead of time. We had some vanities that were coming in from the States, and we had ordered these and they've been on the while. So this just happened recently. So we had to actually cancel the order because they lost it in transit somewhere. We didn't even know where they are. So we had to rebook. So, the tracking, we can show the customer, we paid for the product as tracked. They said, oh, we lost it in shipping, so now we have to get other ones. That's a minor thing, but, we're talking to your customers, right? And just not saying to them, oh, just go find something else. We couldn't get these. We are dealing with delays for sure on a lot of stuff. And so, again, communication is important. Another question would be, how did they deal with your budget? When I say that, I mean, typically we'll go into a job and we'll have a budget set out. So we'll look at that budget as we move along the project. We'll look at, whatever it may be. So the demolition, say, for numbers purposes, you have $10,000. Well, when you were done that demolition, are we getting close to that $10,000? Or maybe you didn't hit the $10,000. Did the contractor let you know ahead of time? Are we going to be on target with that number? So those are always milestones that you have on your budget. So that's important. So once you've done all your investigation and so forth, I would pick 2 contractors, and then from there, decide who it is that you want to use. But once you pick the 2 contractors that you like, I think from that point, it's really, do you really like them? Do you gel with them? I kind of laugh about it because I always say, well, would you invite me over for your kid's birthday? Maybe that's a little bit too personal, but I think that kind of relationship, it might be a small reno, only take a few months. It might be building a new home, which takes a couple of years sometimes, maybe even longer. So you really want to be able to gel with the person that you're going to pick. So I think you have to have trust when you finally pick your contractor. You definitely got to have trust in them in order to guide you in the right direction on costing and stuff like that. So another point is getting along with your contractor, right? And, there are people that don't mesh together well. And then, fair enough, everybody's a little bit different here and there. So find a contractor that you can get along with, that you can work things out with, that maybe you see things the same way. It might not be always true, but at least you find the contractor that you can work with. That's very important because, a lot of jobs, even a bathroom still takes 6 weeks or something like that. Not very big, but if you're building a house, you could be with that guy for 3 years, right? So it becomes like a marriage in a sense. So you really want to be able to know that you can actually work with that person, and then that you can dialogue and be able to sort through issues as things go along. Another thing to ask for, well, actually 2, which are on the kind of the same level, I guess, is workers' compensation and liability. So workers' comp, you can easily call workers' compensation, and they'll give you, or ask your contractor, give you a letter clearance, letter from WCB. So just make sure that they're in good standing with that, because if a worker gets hurt on your site, they don't have coverage, the worker come after you on your site. So that's really important. And same with liability as well. Typically I think now we're doing at least 3 million, probably 5 million liability insurance on that. So in case there's some, by accident, there's some property damage done, the guy kills your rose bush or something like that, that you got passed down from your grandfather. It does happen. There are things like that we've had in the past before that people want to be taken care of. So typically we'll protect those types of things, and you want to ask the questions, or as a homeowner, you want to maybe relay that kind of information or something really important to you that you want to make sure you want to get damaged for whatever reason. And then we always protect stuff as we, if we're building and, we're protecting neighbors' properties and stuff like that. We do the best we can to mitigate any damage. As a builder, we are required to take on learning. So we have CPD, so that's, they're points for professional development. So every year we have, at least 20 hours of training that we have to do, in whatever field it may be. And it could be, ventilation systems. It might be, roofing. It could be basement, underground basement, wall assemblies and that kind of stuff. So, there's a variety of things that we need to keep up to date and up to speed on that. But your renovation contractor does not need that. So I believe it will be changing in the years to come, where the renovation contractor will have to have some kind of credentials going down the road, and then also be licensed, right? So they don't necessarily need to be licensed. They should have liability insurance, but they don't have to be licensed. Whereas builders, if you're building new homes, you have to be licensed. So you won't get your builder number to enroll that home, say, into the new home warranty program, which is another topic that we should touch on too, is, warranties and so forth like that. Renovation contractor, he may have it written on a piece of paper, really in his contract. He may have it on a piece of paper, but that's not really worth a whole lot. So you really want to make sure that you're dealing with a guy that you can trust, and that you can, obviously it'll come back if something does go wrong. That's really important. Again, we talked about communication a little bit, but communication is really important. Nobody wants to left hanging into what's going on or what's their job, because right now we're dealing with a lot of delays in products, and it can be challenging to actually keep track of all that stuff and then relay that information to your client. So it's not an easy thing to do, but I think, again, communication, your understanding that and expectations of what that communication looks like. I think for someone looking to hire a contractor, ask that question. Will you let me know? Do you have an update? Are you going to do it once a week, or what does it look like in that respect? Now we move on to the bidding process. And there's basically two types of contracts that you can enter into. So within that, there's cost plus, and then there's fixed price. So fixed price is obviously, I look at this job, I'm thinking it's going to cost an X amount of dollars to do this, and this is how much it is. So that price is fixed within that. So I'm going to do this amount of work for this cost. That's what a fixed price is. If you do cost plus, is which 99.9% of the contractors out there are doing right now, we get a budget and we try to get as close as possible to where we believe it's going to be. And then, so as we go along, again, like we talked a little bit earlier, if the demolition costs $10,000, and that's a budget item, did we hit that target? So what we can do as we move along down the line and these things get done is we can make adjustments as we go along. And the reason why we do cost plus contracts, because there's a lot, especially nowadays, there's lots of unknowns, and people do change their minds as we kind of move down. So, but I think it's really for another time. I think contracts should be talked about at a whole different episode. So I'm just going to leave it at that for now. Those are the tips you should be looking for when hiring a contractor. If you want to text me or call me or email me, probably the best. You can go to abstracthomes.com and you can email us that way if you have any questions. So that's great. Thanks, guys, for listening. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of The Art of Making Home with Sandro Stefanucci from Abstract Homes. Make sure you keep following every episode to learn his advice about the building industry here in the Lower Mainland. He will have great tips on following episodes when it comes to building or renovating your home. Make sure to follow us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and of course, Apple Podcasts, so you don't miss his latest construction advice. If you want more information on Abstract Homes, all you have to do is go to their website, abstracthomes.com. Talk to you next time.